Okay, hi and welcome to your introduction to Adobe Photoshop. So the reason we're looking at Adobe Photoshop is because in our current competency, we're required to look at things like how to create digital images, how to produce and edit digital images for use on websites. And we're obviously working in our website unit at the moment, and part of that is designing a website, and by definition means we have to produce the images that go on that website. Photoshop is the main tool that we'll be using for this. There's a couple of different things that I'm going to show you along the way. Some really basic editing tools and features that are available to you that should get you across the line in terms of making sure that these images are suitable. To get started looking at Photoshop, I guess it's important to understand that I'm working in Adobe Photoshop, the 2020 version from Creative Cloud. You have access to the most up-to-date license using your student accounts. Please make sure you are using the same version. Any outdated versions might have slight differences in the layout and in the features that are available to you. When you open Photoshop up, initially you're going to see all of the other projects you've been working on. Not too much of an issue if yours are different to mine, obviously. But the main thing we want to see is over on the left-hand side, we've got the option here for Create New. When we create new, we have the option of then selecting what is the size of the image that we require for the purposes of our website. This is where we think about things like pixel width, pixel depth, and how many colors are actually available for us to use in this image. We also need to think about things like what is the actual aspect ratio. So does this need to be in a specific aspect ratio, so width and height ratio, to make sure that it's suitable for the screen we're using? Does it need to be a specific size, such as for a logo that's going to sit in the top left of a website, and all those sorts of considerations happen here. You can also, if you work your way across the top, you can see there are a few preset options here, so photo sizes, print sizes like paper sizes, art sizes, web sizes, mobile sizes, film and video sizes, etc. If we stick with photo sizes as a default, you can click here, view all presets, and we'll show you all of the built-in sizes. Same goes for the print version, so obviously letter for the American size paper there. We've got our A4s, our A5s, A3s, etc. all sitting down here. Okay? If you know exactly the size you want, then it's as simple as going over to the right-hand side and typing in specifically what you want. And you can select your sizes based on millimeters, pixels, inches, centimeters, whatever you need. Typically when we're working in images though, we work on pixels. Okay, so I'm going to get started today. I'm going to show you we can create a 100 by 100 pixel image. And I'm going to leave all of the other settings here. You can double check they're the same without me reading through. Create, and you'll see I now have 100 pixels wide, 100 pixels tall. And it's a particularly small screen. Now I can zoom it in. Okay, I can zoom it in. I'm just pinching on my trackpad. But the reality is 100 by 100 is a really small screen size. And you'll see that if you look down the bottom here, I'm viewing this at 1000% zoom. If I go back to 100, that's the actual size of 100 pixels on my screen. And so it's not really feasible that we would really ever produce an image in this size. Unless it was perhaps an icon to use on our website, like a button, for example. Okay, so let's just close that down. I'm going to go again, File, New, or I can go over here, Create New. And this time I'm just going to pick a really basic 600 by 400. Okay, you can type in 600 by 400 is not an issue, and click Create. And now that's it's a fairly standard basic image size that can be used on a website. Now remember, if I zoom it in, I'm going to lose a little bit of quality, but if I keep it at 600 by 400, the quality can still be quite good. It's just a small size image. So I'll show you around Photoshop now that we're here. I'm in a certain preset view, and you can change which way you look by going over here. You'll see that I'm using Essentials. Essentials is the basic version. Has all the essential features you need for Photoshop, but as you work your way through, if you're doing specific things like graphic and web design, you can change it to graphic and web design, and it will actually change some of the tools that are visible on screen, because there are so many tools built into this software now that they can't all be there all the time. You can also go painting presets, etc. Okay, I'm going to stick with Essentials while I'm working. Back to the left hand side, you've got your tool panel. These are all the really basic tools, things like selection tools, things like erasing tools, things like coloring tools, text tools, shape tools, etc. When you hover over these, they actually have these cool little animations that explain how each individual tool works and what you can do with them. And that's really handy to help remember which tool you needed to use. You've also got, over on the right hand side, you've got a few different panels that have all of the different bits and pieces that you might be using along the way. But the main area that you probably want to know about is right down the bottom here called layers. And this is where we spend a lot of our time when we're working in Photoshop. What you need to imagine is that every time you make an adjustment to an image, think of it as a new layer being put over top of it. And the benefit of things being in layers means you can turn on and off all of the different changes that you've made and all of the different parts of your image. You'll see at the moment, by default, I simply have a background layer, but I can very simply, I've got some images I downloaded yesterday to play around with. I can drag and drop in this extra image, and it's now in my screen. And in my layer panel, I now have a white background, and then sitting on top of that is a sneaker. Now, because the sneaker's sitting on top, you can't see the white background, but if I turn the sneaker off by changing this visibility button, the background is still there and still visible. Okay? So that's how layers work. It literally is what order are all of the items stacked from top to bottom on your screen. Okay? Just like if you had done a cut and paste activity, if you'd cut all of the different things out and layered them over top of each other, the one that's sitting on the top is your top layer. Things at the back are more likely to get lost in your image because they're sitting behind things as you work your way through. Okay? So that's a real basic introduction to Photoshop. You're probably now ready to move on to our really first tutorial. I'm going to show you how to use some of the selection tools. Hope that's been really helpful for you.